Hey folks, thanks for happening upon my channel. My name is Chris Minescu, as indicated by the channel name. Got some notes here in front of me to remember everything. Thanks for coming by. The main reason that I'm making this video is because I want to bring awareness to the need to get screened for colon cancer. Hitting your colonoscopies. Now they've got one where you can do it through the mail. It's really easy. I've actually done it. So there's really no reason not to get screened, but because of my situation, which I'm going to talk about in the next few minutes, probably more than a few because I talk a lot, is to get screened as soon as the doctors say you can. Now, the reason I make that point is because when I was my first colonoscopy or my first screening of any kind, I was 49 years old. I'll get into why that's important, why I'm making that point, what I'm going to go through in the next few minutes will bring light to why I'm even bringing that up. But that's why I'm making this video, is everyone should get screened. Men and women. So the beginning of my story, and the reason I'm going to do this whole story from when this started to present day. The beginning of my story started in July of 2013. Prior to that, even the year before, I was getting some funny abdominal pain. Sharp pain in my left lower quadrant, as they call it. And I went to the doctor, and I'm not going to mention the group, the medical group. I'll just say it starts with a K, and it's very large, and I believe it's probably nationwide, if not worldwide. So I went to my K doctor and said, hey, I'm having these abdominal pains. When I go to the bathroom, when I go number 2, it hurts. You know, I'm having issues. It feels like I have to go, but I can, so on and so forth. So the doctor said, oh, I'll send you down. We'll do an abdominal x-ray. Okay. And we'll do a CT scan. Okay. I had never had a CT scan before that. The one where you drink the fluid, the whole ball of wax. First experience with that, which was nasty. It's like drinking warm swimming pool water, is what I've always said. It even has that metallic-y, like you're drinking swimming pool water. And we've all got swimming pool water in our mouths, I'm sure. So I go to the doctor. I say, I've got these abdominal pains. They're really sharp. He pokes. I'm like, dude, really? I mean, I just told you it hurts there and you're poking. So he says, okay, sends me out for the x-ray, and he says, okay, you've got diverticulitis. So, okay, what's that? And he goes, the short story is there are pockets in your colon that form. The way I kind of describe it to people that don't know is if you had a rubber hose that got a little bubble in it, and then that bubble can get infected. That's diverticulitis, and diverticulosis is the syndrome of the little pooches, but they're not infected, from what I understand. Please don't correct me. I'm not a doctor. That's how I understand it, and it's not really important. So anyways, he tells me, okay, you've got diverticulitis. We're going to put you on antibiotics for 2 weeks. So I took them. Never really felt better. Maybe a little. So I kind of just mulled through it. So this is in July of 2013. I kind of just I sucked it up. I've got a high tolerance to pain. It was like, it hurts, but it's not the end of the world. So November rolls around, right before Thanksgiving. And I go back to him and I say, I've still got the sharp pains. It hasn't really changed. He goes, okay. And with that particular medical group, you have to jump through their hoops and you have to do referrals. So he says, okay, now I'm going to refer you to a gastroenterologist. Okay, fine. So I go to a gastroenterologist, young guy, and he confirms, yeah, you've got diverticulitis, without even doing he didn't do a scope on me, didn't do any kind of scope, sigmoid or colonoscopy. He did no abdominal scans of any kind, ultrasound, x-ray, or CT, did nothing. He just said, yeah, it sounds like classic diverticulitis. I think that probably you just weren't on the antibiotics long enough, back in July. Okay. So I'm taking antibiotics, and one of his notes was, if the pain, because I said I'm in a lot of pain when I have the pain, he says if it gets so bad that you may need to go to the emergency room, don't wait. Okay. So he goes, I want to put you on antibiotics longer. So I think we went 3 weeks instead of the 2 weeks, I think it was, the first time. Excuse me. So anyway, so I do the whole battery of 3 weeks, 7 days a week, and they were antibiotics. I guess they're great. Anyway, everything tasted like metal. I couldn't eat a lot of food, salad, stuff like that, and I could use a salad even now. So this is back in 2013, as a reminder. So I remember going to Thanksgiving dinner at my niece's, feeling I'm on antibiotics, didn't feel that great. Well, anyway, on, I believe it was December 7th, I can't remember the actual date of when I went. I was in so much pain. It was on a weekend, and Friday I was in pain. I was at work, and I had this just sharp abdominal pain. Tried going to the bathroom, could not go at all. I would sit and nothing would come out. Push, push, push. It felt like I had to go, but I couldn't go. So I was in so much pain it was a Saturday night, and I said, okay, I'm gonna drive myself to the emergency room. So I did, and still the same medical group, same hospital, run by K. We'll just call it K. I go in the emergency room. I said, I'm having extreme abdominal pain. I've been treated for diverticulitis, so on and so forth. They said, okay. They admitted me within, I don't know, maybe a half an hour. And then through that night, they just put me on pain pills, which is where I found out that I don't like morphine. My body does not react well to morphine, and they put me on, I believe it was Dilaudid. Made me almost throw up. So I said, never again. So anyway, that night I basically was just in pain pill or painkiller. I wouldn't call it heaven because I was still in a lot of pain. It wasn't as memorable. So the next day they said, okay, we're gonna set you up with a sigmoidoscopy, but before that we're gonna do an enema. Make sure they were convinced that I was just impacted, basically. I know this is all fun to hear, but it's out there. People get this. People can't go to the bathroom. They get constipated. Anyway, so they said, so they ended up doing 2 flushes on me. Let's just call it that. 2 enemas, warm water. It didn't work. What went in came right out, and it wasn't a lot. So, but they said they want to make sure I was as clean down there as possible when they do the sigmoid scope. So they wheel me down for the sigmoid scope, and I'm laying on my side, and they said, just relax and the whole ball of wax. The gastroenterologist who had re-diagnosed me with diverticulitis happened to be there. I don't know why he even needed to be there, but he's sitting there, and I'm laying on my side, and I could see a monitor that was basically showing what was on the scope. So the doctor's behind me doing the scope, and I could see everything. I was loopy. They had put me under to a point, and all of a sudden, and I've never was great at biology, but I see something that looked wrong, and the monitor was up probably a few feet, and the gastroenterologist was sitting below it, and he could look up at it, and I could look up at it, and he says, oh, we can go ahead and take him off antibiotics. Well, at that point, I almost started to cry, because I could see I had a complete blockage, and it just looked almost like when you peel a tangerine, and you look down the center, and it's got that little round area in the middle, and you got the little lines. It looked like that to me, or it looked like a little croissant. Anyway, they said, okay, you've got cancer, or we suspect you have cancer, you have a mass that's completely blocked you off. Okay, so what's next? They said, okay, well, we're going to have to do colostomy. We're gonna have to open you up, put you on a bag, because I was backed up. I was backed up probably quite a bit as far as stool. And I'm going to keep this G-rated as far as not using the SHIT word and so on and so forth. I'm going to try to keep it G-rated. So they think it was the same day, if not the very next. So I was diagnosed on 12/9 of 13. That's when I was told you have cancer. You pretty much have cancer. They hadn't done a biopsy on it, but they were pretty sure. So they said, okay, we have to do an emergency colostomy on you because you're backed up and you've got so much pressure going on. So they did. Put me on a colostomy bag. I was like, well, great, whatever. It is what it. I've never been a fan of the mantra, it is what it is. But when it comes to cancer and when it comes to having cancer, it is what it is. You just have to deal with it on its terms. Yeah, I mean, sure, there's battles you can fight, which I'm going to discuss it here in a few seconds. But anyway, they did a colostomy bag, and I was home in 2 days. I felt great. Pressure was gone. The bag was working, and then that adventure began as far as dealing with my colostomy. I'm single. I live alone. They had deemed that I don't need in-home nursing. I can do it myself because I'm fully capable, which is what I've done. So I did. So that was battle number one, getting the bag put on, I'll call it that. Battle number one was the bag, getting that bag put on, and being told you have cancer. So the K doctor, my oncologist, who I did not have an oncologist yet, so I was assigned to an oncologist, and this is just a footnote, was he never told me what stage my cancer was. I had to ask him several visits down the road. What's my stage? What stage is it? Because I looked up, I went on American Cancer Society and I looked up staging, and they have stage 1, 2, 3, 4, B, A, I think A through D, I don't know what it is. So you could be a 1B or a 2B or whatever. So finally I was told your stage, at that point I was stage 3B I believe, which means it had metastasized. It had metastasized to the lymph nodes in the surrounding area around my colon. Nowhere else at that point. At least they didn't say I had. So anyway, within a few weeks, and because of the holiday, because of Christmas coming up and then New Year's and so on, everything kind of got backburnered. I was kind of in a waiting pattern of, okay, what do we do next? What do we do next? So I was basically on disability from work, not knowing what was going to happen. So then I met with an oncologist, and then, okay, we're going to do radiation to shrink the mass, because studies have shown if you shrink the mass prior to surgery, because we're going to take it out, we're going to take out that and part of your colon down the road. If you shrink it down through radiation, there's a higher likelihood that it won't return. So they put me on what is called, they call it chemo radiation, or at least that's the way it was described to me, was I took a pill 5 days a week of chemo, which was called Xeloda, and radiation 5 days a week. And the radiation was not even 5 minutes. It took them longer to set me up on the table than to actually do the radiation. It took them longer to drive there. So they did that for several weeks. And in the meantime, I didn't go back to work because, well, in the beginning, I said, I don't know what this chemo is going to be like. I was taking a pill. If it was going to make, because you hear, oh, I'm going on chemo. And I think the assumption is always, you're really sick. No, I wasn't. I never really got sick. So within a couple weeks, I called in my doctor. I said, I'd like to go back to work while I'm doing this. And it just worked out where I was going to radiation after work. It was fairly close to my work at the time. So I just went back to work, because I always have felt pay in versus taken out when it comes to disability and unemployment. If you can work, work. If you can't, then yeah, use it. So that was battle number 2, is the radiation, the chemo radiation. I believe it was over 10 weeks. No, I'm sorry, it was 6 weeks, but it was 5 days a week, weekends off, basically, to recuperate, let your body heal, and then you start again. So, this is all in preparation to have surgery done. So in a few months later, I got the okay and the schedule to take out the tumor and part of my colon, which I found out after the fact. They took out a foot. I always had to ask. It was always like, well, how much you taking out? How much did you take out? They never were upfront, which has been kind of a history through all the way up to even now. So, battle 3, as I'll call it, is a new bag. And what I mean by that is they went in, and it was Easter weekend of 2014. I'm sorry, 2014. They went in, they go up through your bottom, and they basically snip out the colon with the tumor in it, and then they connect the two ends, sew you up, and then they put what is called an ileostomy, which is on the right side, which is in the small intestine. And I always think it's funny because it's the longer of the two intestinal tract portions. So I always like to call it the long intestine and the short intestine. The short is the colon. So anyway, they put you on an ileostomy so that no stool, waste, gets down to where they just connected and sewed. They want that to heal up. So I had that on for several weeks, actually a couple months. And in the meantime, battle number 4, IV chemo. And it was a medicine called oxaliplatin, I believe. And I would go in every 2 weeks. For 2 hours, I would be on an IV. Prior to that, they put what is called a PIC, peripherally inserted catheter, in my left arm. Basically, I have a port. I have a little, like an IV, it was always in. It was actually kind of convenient because I didn't have to get stuck every time I went into chemo, and that's why they do it, because they don't want to have to keep sticking you. Plus, chemo does a lot of damage to your veins. So they put me on this PIC, so I would just go in, all I had to do is just hook up to that port, hook up the IV, I'd sit there for 2 hours, and then they would put me on a pump of the same medicine, oxaliplatin, and there was another one, I can't remember what it was. It's been too many years. And by the way, I'm making this recording in January of 2022. Today's the 22nd. So that's how many years has gone by since I'm finally making this recording. So then I would be on a pump for 2 days. I would go in on Thursday, and then Saturday morning they had timed it to where it was 24 hours, or it was actually 48 hours on the pump. And they would time it in such a way where when I would go in the morning, the 2 hours of sitting there on then when they would hook up, it would be about 10 o'clock in the morning. So 10 o'clock on Saturday morning, it would run out. It would actually be done. So the first time, this is just a side note, the first time I said, I was doing it all, I went by myself, was doing everything by myself. I said, I'll drive myself down, and they had to take the pump off. That was the deal. I couldn't just disconnect it and take it in. I had to drive down to the hospital, and a nurse had to disconnect it, clean it, flush it, and then I would have to flush it every day. Well, anyway, the first time I drove myself, and I realized what a big mistake that was, because I literally felt drunk. And I said, you are putting yourself and other people in danger by driving basically intoxicated. Now, I wasn't intoxicated so much as I was impaired, because the medicine was wreaking havoc on my body and my brain. So I ended up calling my sister-in-law, who's been extremely supportive. And I said, hey, this was really scary driving down there. Can you think you could take me on Saturday mornings every 2 weeks? She goes, of course. And she did. That's Mary Minescu, my sister-in-law. I love her. She's been my biggest advocate. So that went several weeks. I believe that was 10 total sessions every 2 weeks. And then they took me off that, and then started doing basically monitoring and screening to see if everything was cool. Well, In 2016, I was still with K, and near the end of the year, something popped up on CT or a PET, and the doctor, I had switched doctors because the first doctor was just not communicating with me, was not telling me what was going on. I was having to ask questions more than just being proactively told stuff. So I said, I want to switch doctors. That turned into you almost have to do a whole brand new consultation like you just met them. And even though the second doctor, and I'm not naming any names in this because I don't want to get sued, or I don't want my estate sued if anybody watches this after I've passed away. But this second doctor, let's call her Dr. R, she had sat in and did one of my appointments, and I liked her. So I switched to her. Well, that was a big mistake. She had an attitude like, I don't know if she was offended that I switched, and she was taking offense on Dr. C's behalf or what, but her attitude, her bedside manner was just really bad. So in 2016, I get this scan that shows something in my right lung. And I said, okay, well, what are we going to do? Let's catch this early. And her attitude, she literally said, oh, there is no catching it early. If this is cancer and it's metastasized to your lung, there's nothing we can do. So I'm thinking to myself, wow, okay, so what, I'm a dead man? I mean, what? She goes, well, because it's now 10 millimeters, it had grown from the last scan to that scan. Because it's now 10 millimeters, I will send it to an interventional radiologist, is what I believe they're called. The guy that goes in with a CT machine, you're in a CT machine, he goes in, he can see as the needle goes in. She says, I'll send that over to this radiologist, and if he feels that it's large enough to biopsy, we'll biopsy it, and we'll get a definite answer. So we did that. And within a few days, results came back, yes, metastatic colon cancer. It was in my right lung. So I meet with this Dr. R, and her attitude was more, I'm going to put you in touch with a thoracic surgeon now, because that's the next step. Take it out. Well, at that point, this is in November of 2016, I was done. Her attitude, having to even switch to a second doctor because they weren't communicating with me, they weren't telling, her attitude as far as, there's nothing we can do if it's metastatic, and then switching her tune. And a lot of times when I would go in, her attitude was, there's something going on, but I'm sure it's nothing. And I felt like, and at one point I even said to her, and I've said this subsequent to other doctors, is, doctor, in your experience as an oncologist, reviewing this type of scan, when has a spot on a PET scan or CT that's grown been nothing? And her answer was never. Every doctor I've ever asked that, and I've asked 3 different doctors that, when have you seen something on a PET scan that's actually larger than the previous scan or scans not be anything? The answer's always been never, in 3 times. So at that point I said, I'm done. I'm going to switch. Through my work, we have the option of another another insurance group. I will say it starts with A. I'm not going to say because like I said, I don't want to get sued. So it starts with A. So I switched to that medical group. Well, the reason I did it was now I can go to any doctor I want. I don't have to go to a doctor to be sent to another doctor. I can go, if I feel I need a colonoscopy, I can go up, search for a gastroenterologist saying I need to make an appointment, do the consultation, do the scope, and I'm done. And I don't have to go through my general, I don't even have to have a general practitioner. So at that point, I switched to a doctor that I was recommended by a family member. Went to him. He confirmed, he actually did another PET scan through that group. There's a different medical group, starts with S, excuse me, and he says, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put in for another PET scan, which I thought was, okay, good. You're not going to go by that last scan from K. I'd like to see that. So another PET scan. Well, now there's a spot in my left lung, left and right lung. So he says, okay, I'm going to put you in touch with a thoracic surgeon. Same story, different doctor. And so I was like, okay, well, at least I'm assured that it's the same process, you know, depending on what group, it's going to be the same deal. The only deal was now I had 2 spots versus 1. So this brings me up to battle number 5, where it metastasized to my lungs, both of them, one each, lower and upper or mid. So I was told that by the K doctor, the left side. Then I ended up switching. So battle 6 is where I had to switch and go through the rigmarole is one of my mom's old words. She's from Pennsylvania. And the rigmarole of getting my files from K sent over to S and that whole thing. So within probably 2 months, I was put in touch with the surgeon. They deemed, okay, surgery is necessary. We're going to open you up. We're going to take out both these nodules, or these, whatever, they call them nodules in some cases. They're masses, they're tumors, they could be whatever. They are tumors because they biopsy them and they come back as cancer. So they opened me up just like heart surgery. They took them out. I recuperated, went back into work. This is in 2017. Okay. So after the surgery and I had healed enough, then they put me, okay, we're gonna do chemo. And I cannot remember the name of it. I know the back end of the word is TCAN. I don't know what, it's like adenotecan or something like that. That's what they put me on, and it was horrible. It made me very sick. I was supposed to do 8 sessions, so one session every 2 weeks. I believe every 2 weeks counted as a phase. They have their own weird terms. So you do 4 phases, two visits equal, something like that. So this doctor, Dr. Z, says, and I was getting, every time I would go in, I would get sicker and sicker. I would get sick at chemo. I would actually be like, I don't feel good. They were giving me nausea medicine that made me nauseous, because what it would do is it would seem like it created like a mucus that gagged me, and I would gag and then I would want to throw up. That's where I developed a horrible gag reflex. I never used to have that. So he cut it short. He cut it from 8 actual sittings to 6. He cut off the last 2, and it doesn't matter. It's not like, so, and he even said, the standard is we should do this, but it's acceptable to do 6, which is what we did. So, chemo lasted several weeks. I worked, same thing, I would go in on Thursday, I would work from home, recuperate, and I wasn't on a bag or a pump. I would just go in, they would re-IV me every single time, give it to me, I would go home, feel horrible. Friday I would work from home, and then I would go back to work on Monday, still not feeling great, but I was able to work. So then this is what I call battle number 8. It's back. 2018, at the end of 2018, I'm told that another scan came back and there was a mass in my left lung by Dr. Z. Just my left lung, according to the doctors. So he pretty quickly said, well, we've tried surgery, we've tried this, I'm gonna send you over to a radiation oncologist. Here in the building, I'll refer you over, you'll meet with him and he'll talk through what you have to do next. Okay, so I meet with Dr. Yu, and he says, okay, we're gonna do radiation. I'm thinking to myself, great, I mean, what's this gonna cost? I mean, I'm always thinking how much out of pocket, how much work am I gonna have to lose? 4 days, 4 days straight, Monday through Thursday. It only would take 20 minutes or whatever, 30 minutes. Like, okay, that's doable. I was thinking I was gonna have to do it weeks over time because I had done it in the past, radiation where it took several weeks. So got that all set up, and in early 2019 we did the radiation 1 week. Took a few days off, did it. That way I wasn't having to bounce between work and radiation. Decided, okay, I just take those days off. I had them on the books, no big deal. So, subsequent to the radiation, within a few months, my voice went out. I was hoarse. I was talking like this. I've got old videos and audios because I do an audio diary, just like a venting thing that I do. And I listened to it, I was like, wow, my voice was really gone. So I went back to him subsequent, because I was having to do follow-ups after the radiation. He would do CT scans, make sure everything looked good as far as what the radiation had done or what it was supposed to do as far as destroying the tumor. I said, yeah, you hear my voice. This happened all of a sudden. I woke up one morning. I had this weird like pain in my neck. The next morning I woke up and my voice is gone. Okay, well, I'll put you in touch with an ear, nose, and throat doctor. He goes, in the meantime, he goes, how long has it been since you've had your PET? And I'm thinking to myself, dude, you look at my records. Don't you have them in front of you right now? You tell me when my last PET scan was. But anyways, he goes, wasn't it about a year ago? And I said, yeah, about a year. Well, you're due then. So I'll go ahead and put in an order for a PET scan. So he does, and I get it done. And in the meantime, well, I get the PET scan. I get an appointment to see a ear, nose, and throat. I go to see the ear, nose, and throat. And I said, yeah, I just had a PET scan. He does a scope down my nose, sees that my left vocal cord's not functioning. It's completely paralyzed. And I said, okay, what would cause that? And he goes, there's a lot of different things, He goes, I said, I just had a PET scan. He goes, well, let me go look at that. And he walks out of the room, he comes back, and goes, yeah, there is something going on in your left lung or left chest that possibly could cause paralysis in the vocal cord. And he explained it that there's two nerves that run down. They're called the peripheral laryngeal nerves. They go down by your vocal cords to your lungs, and I think they loop back. And if something is pressing on one, it can paralyze that actual nerve and knock out he surmised that, but he didn't. I go, well, how would you determine for sure? And he goes, well, you'd have to do a study where they'd actually go in and they do some kind of electrical where they see, I think they check to see if there's electrical current running through that nerve or something along those lines. Anyway, that's the way I understood it. I said, okay, well, he goes, in the meantime, there's a couple of options to get your voice back. We can do an injection. He goes, it's temporary. It lasts about 6 months or so. It pushes the vocal cord closer to the working vocal cord, and your voice comes back. He goes, the permanent fix, I guess you'd call it, remedy, they actually open you up and they put in an implant. And it does the same thing. It pushes the vocal cord, the non-working vocal cord, closer to the working vocal cord, and that way you get your voice back to a point. He goes, but I don't recommend doing that because you don't know what knocked it out. It may clear up, and if you do that, that's a permanent thing. It's an actual, like a piece of rubber, I guess the way he talked. So we opted for the injection. So we go in. Now this is all at the beginning of 2020, or when this finally came around. 2018, I had the radiation. The whole year goes by. By the end of the year, my voice goes out. I'm telling the doctor, he goes, well, the radiation wouldn't have caused your voice to go out. The radiation oncologist is telling me this. And I'm like, I'm not trying to imply that your radiation treatment knocked my voice out. I'm just telling you my voice is out. It never was out. It wasn't before, and it never has been before. I even went to another doctor, and he told me I had laryngitis. Quack. Another doctor I will not name. Very old doctor. Anyway, So I visited him once and never visited him again. So, because even I knew, it was like, this is not laryngitis, dude. So, ENT sets up early COVID 2020 this procedure where they knock you out, they go into your mouth, basically inject this, I don't know what it is, like collagen, I guess. It's a fluid-like substance that your body absorbs over time. That's why it only lasts 6 months, is the way I understood it. But what it does is it temporarily pushes the vocal cord close to the good one, and then you get your voice back. Well, I did. I got my voice back for the most part almost immediately, within 2 days. And that was a one-day deal. You go in, you go home that same day. So, in the meantime, that PET scan was still there with something showing up. And Dr. Yu said, your last CT scan was clear. I just had a CT scan. But you got something, I'm seeing something on your PET scan. And I'm like, wait a second. I said, you said my CT scan was clear. I said, I was told by my oncologist medical assistant that my CT scan was clear. Now you're saying I should go see a surgeon because there's something going on. He goes, well, your CT scan was clear. But, and then that, you know, the old saying is if you say but, then everything you said before that doesn't count. So I kind of felt like that. I was like, so what you just said was the CT scan was clear, but it really wasn't clear. So he says, I'm going to put you in touch with a surgeon. And I'm thinking to myself, why would you put me in touch with a surgeon if it's quote unquote clear? I said, okay, whatever. So Dr. K, the surgeon, gives me a call and says, hey, I'm Dr. K. Dr. Yu sent me your referral. I'm looking at your PET scan and there's something going on in there. I'm like, okay, hold on a second. I said, Dr. Yu just got done telling me that it's a clear scan. He goes, well, I'll give him a call, but he goes, this is not a clear scan. He goes, there's something going on and we should really consider taking it out. And I said, okay. And this is in the middle of COVID, right at the beginning. This is in May. And I was working from home, and everybody was at the time. So basically I said, okay, well, when can what's the soonest we can do it? I mean, how urgent is it? He goes, I wouldn't wait more than a couple of weeks. I said, well, okay. Well, I said, I'm working from home. What's the earliest I can do it? He goes, I can do it tomorrow. He goes, I can have you check in tomorrow and do it the following morning. So Cinco de Mayo, 2020, I went, he said, go to the emergency room, tell him you're having some chest pain. I go, well, I kind of am. I said, I'm having this weird, something going on. Okay, good. He goes, just tell them that. They'll admit you, they'll run everything. And he goes, and I'll come and see you and we'll do the surgery the next morning. Well, 7:30 the next morning on May 6th, 2020, he went in through my back, took out a 22 millimeter mass from my left lung that was attached to my descending aorta and took it out. And I was home Tuesday was the 6th, I was home by Friday. Back to work Monday morning, working from home. So then in the meantime, non-cancer related, I get this pain, or I get a pain not knowing it was not cancer related. I thought it was. In the meantime, I ended up switching doctors. Let's just jump to that. Because of the whole Dr. Yu and Dr. Z telling me you had a clear scan, but we're going to send you to a surgeon, and that whole back talk, let's just call it that, double talk, or talking out of one different sides of your neck, saying one thing and meaning another, whatever metaphor you would like to use for this. I decided to move on. So I'm going to go to a different doctor. So I went to another group. It also starts with S, but it also has another S in it. And it's a branch off or a different division of the original S, but they're not affiliated. So I switched to a new doctor. I was recommended by my boss's wife who works in the medical industry. She said, yeah, go to Dr. H. She's a great doctor, da da da. Well, first conversation I had with Dr. H is, hey, you're my favorite kind of patient. And I'm like, why is that? And he says, because you don't have cancer. And I'm like, Why? Because I just had surgery? He goes, well, yeah. I go, well, that doesn't mean I don't have cancer. I said, we both know I still have cancer. I'm stage 4. Well, yeah, but that should have been a clue to things that were going to come up. So anyway, this doctor I'm constantly having every 6 months. I said, okay, so what's the plan? He goes, well, we're not going to do any more CT scans. We're going to do only PET scans. CT scans are not conclusive. They're coming back as negative when they're actually positive, so on and so forth. I said, okay, whatever. I go, how? And then he doesn't mention how often. So I finally have to ask him at 6 months. I go, hey, it's been 6 months. Are we doing a PET scan at 6 months? Because we used to do CTs at every 6 months, PETs every year. Oh, yeah, I'll put that order in. So this happened 2 times. The following one, which was May of 21, I said, hey, are we going to do a PET scan? Yeah, oh yeah, I'll put that in, yeah. In the meantime, I have had no blood work. He's ordered no blood work. He's never told me, hey, you need to stop by the labs, get some blood work, which to me is like, if you got cancer, you should be getting blood work a lot. I know they do. I did a lot when I was going through chemo, but because they have to check to make sure you're freaking not croaking, the chemo's not killing you, shutting down stuff. So they do blood work constantly. Matter of fact, I had to do a blood work before each chemo session, before and after. So he sets up the. I'm trying to get my train of thought here. I'm jumping around a little bit. So he sets up the PET scan, and it's in May. So I get the PET scan, and I message him, and I said, hey, I got my PET scan. I'm waiting for the results. I'm really anxious. I said, I want to move forward on some home improvement stuff I'd like to do. I've been holding off. I've saved the money, but I'm holding off. I don't want to do home improvement if I'm going to have to battle cancer again in the next few months. Oh, okay. So he gets back to me, and he says, oh, scan's clear. Quote unquote clear, all caps, underlined, bold letters, clear. Move forward with your plans to do your kitchen. Okay, so I do. So then this past November 2021, same thing. A few weeks before November, I sent him a message. I said, hey, it's coming up on 6 months. I'm being proactive. I know it takes a few weeks. I've actually had where he puts in an order and 3 weeks later, I finally maybe get the actual scan, get the appointment. So I said, I'm being proactive. I know that it takes a few weeks. So he says, yep, I'll put that in right away. I go, okay, good. And I said, oh, and I haven't had any labs in quite a while. Okay, I'll put that in too. So, I'm waiting for the results for the November scan. I get the results for the blood work and my CEA, which is, I believe it's carcinoembryonic antigen, I believe, CEA. Normal 0 to 3. Most human or adults don't have any. You have it when you're a baby, it goes out of your system, and then you shouldn't have it again. It basically re-elevates when you get cancer. So the 0 to 3 is normal. I was at a 12. So that came back on my report. I'm like, great, why is my CEA so high? So I still waiting for the PET scan. So I messaged him. I go, hey, what's going on with the PET scan? It's never taken this long. I was getting kind of worried why it was taking so long. He finally gets back. He says, oh yeah, there's a couple areas that we want to keep an eye on, but it looks pretty good. Real ambiguous. So in the meantime, then these messages are coming back as I'm getting reports. So the CEA came back, and so I sent him a message. What about that CEA? That seems kind of high. He goes, yeah, that's a little high, but the rest of your blood work looks good. And I'm thinking to myself, I don't care about the rest of my blood work. I'm worried, why is that CEA so high? It's never been that high. It wasn't that high when I had a giant mass in my colon. It wasn't that high. And now it's 12, 3 times as. So then he messaged me back again. He says, yeah, your scan looks pretty good. We'll talk about the scan and your blood work on our next call. Let's set that up. So we set up a Zoom call, and I have a call. And the short story is, by the end of the call, it was, yeah, you got 5 spots in 4 areas of your 2 lungs, in the back, the front, this, that. And I told him, I said, I'm getting lightheaded. I don't know what that's all about. He goes, well, I'm going to go ahead and put it in for an MRI to make sure it hasn't spread to your brain, because colon cancer, actually all the cancers have the different areas that are common metastasis points. And colon is liver, lung, and brain. So far, I've already got 1. So he goes, I'm going to go ahead and put in an MRI, and we'll get your brain scan and make sure there's nothing going on there. He goes, I'm also going to put in for a biopsy on one of the spots, one of the 5 nodules, whatever you want to call them, areas, masses. We're going to do the one in the back because it's close to the surface, so on and so forth. And he goes, I'm going to send that off for a metabolic study of some kind to determine how we're going to tackle it. He goes, we may have to do immunotherapy, we might do chemo. He goes, there's a lot of different variables, but I have to get that report back. So at that point, I was done with him. I said, okay, you're same old. I have to ask. You don't just tell me. When I had my gallbladder out, he didn't tell me that until I asked, hey, I got this pain in my gut. What's going on? He says, oh, there was something on your PET scan. Why didn't you tell me that? Why am I having to ask you and be worried and think, oh, I'm going to have to run to the friggin' hospital? Very frustrating. So, anyway, he sends off the metabolic study. And then add basically the cherry on top of why I ended up leaving this doctor was I had the biopsy, came back positive for metastatic colon cancer, which I already knew. 2 weeks later, I'm told I have to get specific blood work at his office. I couldn't just go to any lab within the group. It had to be drawn at their facility to go along with the biopsy to go off to this laboratory. And I was like, I literally was just down there getting an MRI that you put the order in, and now you're telling me I got to come back down? To me, it's just very counterintuitive. So I'd already decided I'm done with this guy. So now I ended up switching once again to a different group. It's the last time I'll change, so hopefully it works out. Another, from what I can tell, it starts with an M. They started in Texas, I believe. They're famous for cancer studies. My new doctor is a gastrointestinal cancer specialist. He specializes in just GI and metastasized GI cancer, so feeling positive. So that's up to today. I had a PET scan yesterday because he requested a new one because he wanted to see if there's any growth from my November scan from the last group S, to see in this past 2 months from November to now if there's any changes. And then he's going to base everything that we do next, whether it be immunotherapy, chemotherapy, oral, nothing at all, wait to see if it gets bigger. We're going to decide. That's what brings us up to right now. So here we are, January 22nd, 2 days from now. I have a follow-up with the new doctor, Dr. S, to discuss the PET scan, the metabolic study that he was supposed to be following up on, and those labs. My CEA, he had labs done, and my CEA came back lower than before, but still high. So there's some fluctuation going on in these labs that I'm getting, or these readings. So that's it. I wanted to make this video to basically, I've never made a video covering my venture, my battles, my war on cancer for 8 years now. I've been battling this for 8 years. I figured, yeah, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to make a video, put it out here on YouTube, and I'll make subsequent catching people up on what's going on now, which is basically going to be another chemo battle maybe, or I don't know what's going to be. I'll be posting. Thanks again for finding this video. I don't insist on people subscribing. If you want to if I post more videos about this venture and you really are interested in hearing this story, go ahead and subscribe. But I'm not one of those people that relies on people to subscribe. I'm just doing this because I want to put it out there as a message. I am offering no medical advice. This is just me. The only medical advice I can give is a blanket statement: is you should be getting your colonoscopies if you can, if you have insurance or you can do it. I mean, there's no reason not to. And nowadays, if they catch it early, I mean, you got a better chance than if they catch it late. But I'm not saying you got to get a colonoscopy, but I personally, I recommend it. But it's not medical advice. Talk to your doctor. Let your doctor decide what you should do for you. So that's it. I'm going to end this one, and thanks for watching again. God bless you, and we'll see how this venture goes.